In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful, good evening, friends, and welcome to the 22nd episode of Crime and Punishment, a legal podcast, not a political one. It is the official podcast of the Invictus Law Firm, PA, a criminal defense law firm in Orlando, Florida, the website for which is augustusinvictus.com. And that is me, your host for the evening, and I'm here with my trusty co-host, Tiger Jin. We are here to talk at you about the legal news. Tiger, welcome to the program. So, tonight we are going to talk about some things we have talked about before. We're going to pick them up. But first, let's chit-chat, shall we? Because that's what most people do. It also gives us an opportunity to make sure that the microphones are actually working this time, so we don't talk 30 minutes about the Latin Mass and find out no one could hear us. So,
yes.
Let's do a brief survey then on what exactly we're going to... Actually, no. Let me do the correct thing, the business-like thing, the marketing thing, and let's put in here the viral style ad. If you check your comment thread there, yeah, look at that. Look at that, I'm doing the right thing today. We've got that, and I'm going to put in a link for the newsletter, which went out today. If you did not get the newsletter, it sucks to be you, but you can get the next one by subscribing to the newsletter. Today's issue is called Novus Ordo Seclorum, which of course means New World Order and is found on the back of your dollar bills, y'all. Alright, so somebody, Florida Treasure, saying that our audio is good. Here is the link to the newsletter. Please go sign up for that so you can catch our brilliant newsletters once a week, and it will refer you to this podcast. It's kind of like a giant loop, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good evening, Melody. Good evening, Florida Treasure. Talk about Article 4 citizenship. Haywood, you were going to have to send me a link on that one. I'm not sure what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I can't say I know either.
That's all right. We will get ourselves educated and we'll come back to it. So Tonight we're going to talk about, as I said, some things that we've talked about before, one of them being what we talked about last week, the banning, effectively, of the Latin Mass by Pope Francis, which is a legal topic because Pope Francis is the last absolute monarch on earth. We're also going to talk about the Capitol thing, the incident at the Capitol on January 6th. We have a new article on that. Hearings are going to be going on tomorrow in Washington, D.C. They say they are removing the barricades around Congress. That's interesting. What else have we got going on here? We've got a baby shaking case. That's never fun to talk about, but what are we doing here? What else we got? I can't, something's going on with my computer here. Ohio State University?
Oh, yes. One of the dangerous members of Incel was captured before he could shoot up a place.
I see. So is this, did this actually happen? Is this fake news? Or what's going on with this? You know what? Let's just start with this one. How about that?
Sure. Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah.
Let's start with Ohio State University and how that's making the news today. This is an inside joke in my family, by the way, and my sons are on this program, so I hope they get a load of this. I'm about to love this article, I'm sure. So, incel who allegedly planned mass shooting at Ohio State University to be jailed until trial. This came out 3 days ago. So, what's going on, Tiger?
Well, this is a guy who said he was going to go and try and find a sorority and shoot it up because he hates women for rejecting him. He is an incel, involuntarily celibate.
So, for the uninitiate, this is being some kind of phenomenon, I guess you would call it. The incel phenomenon, where they get upset and shoot things up. The handwritten document in question was titled A Hideous Symphony, a manifesto written by Tresjenko, the socially exiled incel. That is a verbose manifesto title. He must have been an English major. A Hideous Symphony. I reckon we should not try to find that and read it on air, but let's see. Soon after writing his manifesto, Jenko attended Army basic training at Fort Benning in Georgia. By December. So how old is this manifesto? I thought he wrote it while in class at Ohio State.
The timeline's a little confusing to me, but it says he wrote that the mass shooting would take place 9 months later at Ohio State University on May 23rd, 2020.
All right, when was he arrested?
I don't even see, he writes a manifesto, then he joins the Army?
Yeah, and then goes to college
afterward. That's what's really confusing to me.
Then goes to, and we're a year and a half later, since the alleged plan was supposed to take place, which obviously did not take place. Search for police scanner codes on March 11th, 2020. Arrested March 12th, 2020. I see. Pled guilty in Highland County to making terrorist threats and was sentenced in October 2020 to 17 months in prison. Released on parole. Hold on a second. This says it's a July 23rd, 2021 article. Why is it telling us he was released February 2021? Did he... So is this a state case he took this plea to and now he's being arrested on federal charges?
I don't think so. I think what it's announcing is that he, this is all state as far as I can tell. Magistrate.
Well, it says here at the last sentence, since his arrest this week on federal charges. Yeah, I'm wondering what the...
I guess he's getting hit with both then. Because I had another article for this one. I thought... No, okay, this one says it. Here he is. He's charged with attempting a hate crime and unlawful possession of a machine gun. And as we see, whenever there's a hate crime, federal charges come down. So, and that's what gets me. I'm wondering if this is another one of those federal patsy setups. Because I know I was reading, it comes out like whenever the FBI comes in and investigates a right winger, like the agents will literally ask the guy about his sex life to see if he's an incel. And then there was something a couple of months ago where there were all these federal documents saying incels are this new terrorist group, and you gotta watch out for the incels, and so
there have been several articles that have come out. FBI
manifesto 9 months ago, and then the feds catch up to him only now, right before he does anything. I don't know. It seems a little suspicious to me. It could all be real. It could be. Frustrated men.
Well, I suppose we'll never know the truth. That happens when you're living in 1984.
Yeah.
We love Big Brother, by the way. We do not say that in a critical tone. Just stating the loving facts. So, anyway, that's what's going on at OSU this week. What's next?
Watch out for the incels.
Yes. Holy smokes, we got a lot of stuff here. All right, so they're packing the courts. Let's talk about that. I think we brought that up once before, but I
Yes.
thought they were
When we
dropping
brought it
that.
up before, they were only just then announcing this commission. Now the commission's been meeting and some stuff have been coming out of it.
Yeah, they were talking about the commission or committee, whatever, and we thought that, yeah, the commission, Court Reform Commission, we thought they were just musing over it. I didn't realize they were actually serious about this, but they're dead serious.
Oh yeah, yeah.
All
It's the
right,
Presidential Commission on the Supreme Court.
well, this is a SCOTUS blog article. Term limits emerge as popular proposal at latest meeting of Court Reform Commission. So, when this first came about, the discussion was about packing the courts. So famously back in the Roosevelt administration, the FDR, that is, administration, he couldn't get the New Deal through, so he was going to pack the courts to like 15, I think it was, instead of 9 Supreme Court justices. And then one of them switched. That was called affectionately the switch in time that saved 9, or saved the 9, rather. And so he switched his opinions, stopped being a hardliner. The New Deal started passing through, and FDR did not pack the courts, and it hasn't really been a topic of serious discussion until right now. So everybody thought this was going to be more about packing the courts than anything, but now term limits have come up, which, as I said before, would have been a good topic of discussion 20 years ago when Ginsburg was like 70. And now it's just clearly I don't know. It might be a good idea. I don't know. Let's find out. So the Presidential Commission on the Supreme Court reconvened on Tuesday to hear from a new set of experts on various ideas for Supreme Court reform. Like the last meeting, various legal experts testified and answered questions from commissioners in a series of panels spread throughout the day. President Joe Biden appointed the 36-member commission to write a report on various court reform options. Now, Tiger, do you know anything about this commission and its composition?
No, I do not.
Well,
the best I can say is like the news articles, they refer to it as bipartisan. So supposedly you got Republicans and Democrats both in there.
Oh, I'm sure we do. What does it matter when it's all one party anyway?
Yeah.
The party. Big Brother's party. So Biden to create bipartisan commission on Supreme Court reform. This is when I feel like we looked at it. Yeah, we did. I've seen this list before.
Yeah.
So professor of law, professor of law, professor of law, distinguished scholar in residence, professor of law, professor of law, professor of law. It's a very diverse committee, as you can see. Professor of law, former president of the American Constitution Society. Look at that.
That's
a new one.
Yeah, that's something.
Yeah, professor of law, retired judge. Oh, and lecturer on law. I thought we had a different one there. So they're almost all professors of law, a few retired judges.
In other words, people who practiced law for 3 years and then went to become a professor.
Which I don't fault them for.
Yeah,
That used to be how it was done. You would stay in academia, and the people who practice law were like doing the dirty work. The real legal profession was academia. Those are bygone days. So I don't know any of these guys. Strauss.
And looks like
Tribe,
most of them are from the Ivy League.
Levi.
Lots Yale, Harvard.
Well, they are the ones steering the ship, for better or for worse.
I mean, it's their students who become the justices anyway.
That's right. It's the Ivy League who become the justices, the most influential federal clerks, the judges, the congressmen. People will talk trash about the Ivy League all day and night, but they're still running things. in a big way. Anyway, personally, I don't know any of these people, so I couldn't tell you if it's bipartisan or not. It doesn't have their political affiliations. It just says Professor of Law times 36. So, the composition being a mystery to us, let's continue. The key topics included the confirmation process, term limits, transparency and disclosure, expanding the size of the court, and the court's role in a constitutional government. Emerging as the topic of greatest interest among panelists and commissioners alike was term limits, although there was also some interest, especially in earlier panels, for the adoption of a formal code of ethics for the justices. I would like to see that conversation.
I mean, I'm wondering what it would be about.
Certainly about racism.
I mean, as far as I know, there hasn't been any ethical controversies with justices recently.
Well, of course they're going to create those controversies. They're going to say, well, it's obviously unethical when you denigrate one of your fellow justices by calling their ideas, fill in the blank for whatever Scalia said about everybody else.
I remember which justice it was, but it was back during the Nixon administration, and one of the more liberal justices, he was getting hammed on by the media for something about his finances, like he was investing in something or other that they didn't like. And what he went and did was just completely eliminate his entire income from everything except solely being a Supreme Court justice. No investments in anything, just completely got rid of everything so that there would be nothing to complain about. and I mean, when I was reading this in the history book, I'm just like, that's pretty based. I mean, like, I respect him for that.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah.
It's like being president and donating your entire income as president to a charity or a different branch of government all the time. That would be crazy. So, I don't know what the code of ethics would be. I assume racism has to be in there somewhere. It just has to be, because it's not in the Constitution, so we have to make a code of ethics. And I think that's really what it has to be. That's why I like to hear the conversation, because I'm making a lot of assumptions here, but I'm going to assume that all of these, fancy Ivy League lawyers who are on this commission probably have a few ideas of their own on what the founding fathers left out, what the framers left out of the Constitution, what should be in there. What do they call it? The my body, my choice thing. What's the legal term for that? Dignity of the person or self-ownership, whatever that legal term is. It's escaping my mind. They got to put that in there. You have to protect that. Racism, it's got to be top of the list. No denigrating your fellow judges' opinions. No overturning things that are clearly not to be overturned, like Brown v. Board of Education or Roe v. Wade, or things like that. Because, funny enough, as we heard this past Sunday, there are a bunch of people in different states who are now aiming to overturn Roe v. Wade. There are a lot of movements in the states. The Catholic Church has a petition going to start litigation to have it overturned. So I think that might be another reason that this has become such a timely issue for these guys in the commission. Why we need to do judicial reform right now, because if they don't do it fast, Roe v. Wade could be done for. That would be a crying shame, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
People would have to be responsible. That's a dirty word.
And I mean, that was something, I was thinking about whether to bring that up on the show. I personally would like to do a bit more research on those cases before I the abortion cases before I really comment on it. But just my preview, if the court even chooses to hear it, I'm not even sure they would overturn Roe v. Wade. This court, I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, from what we've seen of these justices, that'd be a long shot.
Yeah. But I mean, these guys, I mean, I'll just go ahead and say it. I mean, they're concerned about term limits. It's because they've convinced themselves that Trump appointed a bunch of Nazis as justices.
Right.
And they're just like, hey, go, let's make the term limit. In fact, I think it says in here, they're thinking making the term limits move with the presidential terms. And so
what?
just like, yeah.
No, hold on. I missed that part.
Yeah, it's down here. Where it says an 18-year term limit would mean a justice every 2 years or 2 appointments per presidency. Other potential timeframes include 12 or 16 years, but as Vicky Jackson explained, 12 years may be too short and could allow a 2-term president to appoint 6 of the 9 justices.
I see. Okay, so yeah, clearly the fact that presidents have always appointed and made political appointments of judges, especially at the last minute. They've been doing that since the Midnight Judges of John Adams. Like, this is nothing new. This is something that the second president of the United States did, and it's been tradition. It's not even something that you decry. It's American tradition that the president appoints political judges in his 11th hour in office.
And I think a lifetime appointment is good, honestly. I mean, I think it keeps them from being too political, if anything.
Yeah, because now that they can leave, now they have a private life that they have to plan for. Because you don't get to the Supreme Court by just fooling around. You just get tapped on the shoulder one day. How would you like to be a Supreme Court justice? This is a career. This is something you aim for your entire life, to become a Supreme Court justice. So now that they absolutely have to go into private life afterward, obviously these forward-thinking people are going to think, what am I going to plan for? I'm certainly not going to be the guy that's going to be cast out of private life when I leave here. I'm going to play the game. I'm going to have a speaking tour afterward. I'm going to have a professorship at Columbia. And I'm going to do all the right things. It makes it way more political. And way more self-interested.
Yeah, then you'd have a whole bunch of law schools with former Supreme Court justices as professors.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, it's like you leave Congress and magically you are an executive at Pfizer. How did that happen? You leave the presidency, you have to, after 8 years, maximum. And unless you're an idiot...
what was that?
I was going to say, unless you're an idiot, you are going to be rich after you're president because you will always be making $100,000 per speech. You'll have a massive, multi-million-dollar book deal. Like, even Richard Nixon, whom they absolutely destroyed, disbarred from the Supreme Court, did everything they could to put him in the grave after Watergate. He was still successful after being president. Came back, well, I mean, it is Richard Nixon. He could have come back from multiple graves. But, yeah, if you put term limits on these justices, it's going to be a massive racket.
That's a good point. One of the things I wanted to add about, I think we see it often, honestly, where the justices, through their essentially life tenure, and technically it's not, but it's their life tenure, they would change their politics, or they would make decisions that supposedly go against their political beliefs. Like we would even see that with Ginsburg. Even back when we thought she was dead, she knocked down a Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals decision where they went in, they made a decision entirely off of an amicus brief, And Ginsburg shoots it down, saying, "No, that's not allowed. A judge can't make a decision ignoring what the lawyers were arguing and just go off an amicus brief, even though it was on, I don't remember the cause, but it was like a rabidly leftist cause, like probably something about banning guns or something."
All right, we've got to read the comments here, especially since the inundation just quoted Nixon as saying, "Never shake hands with a man from San Francisco." Please tell me that that is a real quote.
Oh yeah, that is, but I believe the exact word because I listened to it so many times. There's this great leaked audio of Nixon where he it's great. I can't even say the exact words on air for your show.
I was gonna
He
say,
uses
is
some
it
vulgarities,
profane?
but he says,
Yeah.
"I wouldn't even shake hands with a man from California," and he was referencing Bohemian Grove, what he saw there in California.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Interesting.
And there's some in that audio. There's also some great conversations that he has with Billy Graham regarding a certain ethnic religion, and it's great. There's a lot of great hidden audio from Nixon.
Oh, Nixon is the unsung hero of the 20th century. So I cannot MW2 Freak 7, please do not be some kind of code that's going to get us kicked off air, whatever that name means. But he says, "Hey Augustus, love the podcast. You have inspired people to become / our attorneys / just know that." Very cool, man. Thank you. I actually have an unread message on Twitter about that. Somebody got a full ride scholarship to a law school, and I've failed to get back to him. If you are listening to this show, buddy, I'm sorry. I'm very bad at social media messages, as anyone in the chat I'm sure can attest to. Right above that, it was when we were talking about the Ivy League still running the country in a big way. El Dragon says, "Well, guys, if you don't become an elite yourself, what do you expect? Augustus, why don't you run for the office?" I don't know which office you mean, unless you mean like Supreme Court Justice.
Because you have ran for some offices already.
Yes, I ran
That's
for
what you're famous for.
Senate, and I ran for U.S. Senate. I ran for U.S. President. And that was before, however, I discovered my true love in life, which is, of course, Big Brother. So my father always told me when I was younger I should be a judge. And I told him, nah, I would be removed from the bench within a week. Because it would go one of two ways. Either the person would walk or I would have them hanged. There would be very little middle ground. Child molesters, death. Marijuana offense, that guy's going home. I would be very cognizant of judicial economy. So yeah, they would remove. But now that I've been through what I've been through, and I've been a lawyer for 10 years and all the rest, and I've organized legal networks, and I've mentored people, and I've coached and judged, and everything in between. Now I understand I actually would be an excellent judge, if I do say so myself. But that ain't going to happen in this lifetime, I'll tell you that. Because it's way too political for me.
Well, I mean, that's something I've spoken to many judges. When they would come to our law school, and the students would always ask, "How do you become a judge?" And all of them were very honest. They would say, "It's political.
Yeah.
It's entirely political. It's who you know. That's how you become a judge."
Yeah, whether you're being elected or you're being appointed, again, they don't just walk up to you and tap you on the shoulder and say, "Hey, how would you like to try out being a judge?" Nah, man. Nah. You have been aiming for this. You know who to talk to. You know the right places to go, the right people to clerk for. you know the right law firms and the right partners to talk to, the right judges. It's super political.
And I believe that's key, the clerkship. I'm not even sure if it's possible to become a judge without having been a clerk for some judge before.
Well,
I mean,
maybe at the federal level.
yeah,
At
yeah.
state,
Federal,
yeah.
in the state level, what I've seen is it'll be like there'll be some hotshot prosecutor for a while in the criminal court, and they'll go and run for election or try and get appointed. And at least in
Well,
my area, that's what it often is. It's often these judges who were prosecutors before, or so that's the other thing. If you want to be a judge, the the system very much likes it in public if you worked in criminal courts. Like if you were an attorney, I don't know, drawing up contracts or something, or even if you were just working in
well,
personal injury, it's not as popular position for a
well, that's
judge.
because personal injury doesn't typically go to trial. But I will say
Yeah.
I've seen judges in, well, all over, but specifically where I'm headquartered in Orlando, in Orange County. I've seen judges from personal injury. I've seen judges from civil litigation. I've seen judges from family law. It could be from anywhere as long as you've actually been to trial. Like, I think that's the big thing is you have to have experience in trial as a litigating attorney. If you don't have that, like I do know a judge, I'm not going to name because this is not a criticism, but the background of this judge happened to be more in appellate law than anything else. But that's not a handicap. And like we were talking about earlier with academic law, that used to be the real law. You know, appellate law was the real law.
Yeah.
Trial attorneys, like doing what we do, that's the dirty work. You don't talk to those people. That's the other side of the tracks. Trial law, that's like the Wild West over there. Appellate law is dignified. And so if you are a judge who has a background in appellate law, I think that's a positive from where I'm standing. But I'm also an elitist snob. So,
Well, so am I, because I would agree, actually. I mean, I prefer that because in the appellate courts, that's where you're arguing law. It's only law. The trial is over. The facts are set in stone, so to speak, and you're just arguing the law from there. I think it's a much better place for lawyers and
yeah,
judges.
but I don't know. I think a judge has to have seen both sides of those tracks, you know, because I have this feeling that certain judges, certain appellate attorneys, and quite frankly, even some trial lawyers, they don't really consider the fact that all of these names that are in this case law, you know, everything you study in law school, all the judicial opinions, all the appellate opinions, all the Supreme Court opinions, all of those names you're reading, those are real people. Like this guy, for instance, that we were all holding our breath. What's the Supreme Court going to say? When in California, this guy is driving down the street, blasting his music and honking his horn, and the cops are like, nah, not in my neighborhood. And they chase after him and then run into his house as he's closing the garage door without a warrant. He hasn't committed any crime but honking his horn and playing the music too loud. And we're all thinking, Fourth Amendment. You can't do that. This isn't a hot pursuit. There's no exigent circumstances. And we're thinking in terms of legal precedent, like what is this case going to mean for the country if they allow the cops to act like this? Meanwhile, we're all guilty of not considering the fact that I don't even know this guy's name. You know, and this guy's life has been completely turned upside down because he's driving down the street listening to his radio and honking the horn. His entire life is, I won't say destroyed because there are worse cases in the world, but, you know, what a stupid thing to get arrested for. And this guy, God bless him, he has gone all the way to the Supreme Court saying, no, man, you're not going to run into my house because I was honking the horn. The sand on that guy, because most people just fold.
Right.
Meanwhile, this guy's got a family. He's got a job. He's clearly got a house that the cops ran into, and all of this is at stake. I don't know his name. He's a real person with like hobbies. Who knows in California what those hobbies are, but he's got a life, and we don't think about that a lot of times. And these judges and appellate attorneys and even trial lawyers, like I said, like they get these cases and they're like, burglary this and, drug test that. Well, you tested positive, I heard today in court. Anyway, people stop seeing the human side of law. They start thinking of it as case law. So I really think, to get back to the point of what I was saying, I think judges should have both sides of that experience, both knowing the law backwards and forwards as an appellate attorney and actually knowing the trial side of things, so that you don't forget that these are human beings that you are judging. Seamus Oliver Smith says, greetings from my current assignment. Behind the lines in northern New Hampshire, still accumulating state licenses like my hero, Invictus. Why, thank you very much, Mr. Smith, and I wish you the best in your endeavors and your mission up there behind the lines. Melody says that JFK was the best president through to this day. I don't know about that. I'm a Nixon guy myself, but I do love JFK. Let's see. Does Augustus's mic audio get randomly too loud at times, or is that an issue on my end? Asks Gigi. That's probably because I get up in arms every now and then. And I start hollering, and the mic picks it up. So I will try to go back to my even tone. Let's see. Got a lot of comments tonight, boy. I don't even know where to begin with all this. Are you checking all these? All right.
I got closed on my end. I got junk computer. I found out I can't have both things running up, so.
True. Mr. Caesar says, I am a Nixon respecter. I love that language. All right, so we should probably get back to the news sometime tonight. Oh, right, we're still talking about term limits.
Yeah, and I think one of the important things here is the discussion of how are they going to implement these term limits? And they discussed this a little bit. They're saying they would either have to be a statute or a constitutional amendment. And I mean, so where the whole life tenure, that comes from the Constitution, but the exact wording there is that the justices hold their offices during good behavior. And even that language, good behavior, has not been litigated. Under case law, constitutional law, we don't even really know the actual legal definition of what that means. But it just through practice, the justices, they would stay up there as long as they want to until they decide they want to retire.
Yeah, you know what I would love to see happen is they pass it as a statute. One of the judges sues, one of the Supreme Court justices sues Congress, and they take it up to the court and they recuse themselves from the case. That would be a plot twist. Although I reckon the other 8 justices might say it's a political question, but that would be awesome. Because doesn't Congress give themselves pay raises? Like, why wouldn't the Supreme Court have a say in, I don't know, I don't like this whole term limits thing. It's unconstitutional.
Yeah, and that was what I was going to say about the whole thing about this commission. I mean, they don't have any authority to do anything. And I feel like all this stuff, it's just like, it's just shooting air. It's like the justices, I want them, it's their court. They decide how it's going to be run. That's my entire feeling on it. I'm just leave them alone. Let them do their thing. Yeah,
but we might only feel that way because things are kind of going all right now. Nobody's rocking the boat. Like, think about the judicial activists, in other days doing things that were clearly a far left agenda, and people were talking about, the courts don't have the authority to do this stuff, and the leftists were like, well, they're an independent branch of government. Can't tell them what to do, because things were going their way back then.
Yeah, I mean, I recognize that. So I would run the thought experiment in my head. Like, what if it was nothing but justices I absolutely hate and feel have no business being up there? And I don't know, like, I've always felt that life tenure, well, or as the Constitution puts it, during good behavior, like, that's a good thing. That is what I want. And I feel that alone controls much of their behavior. Regarding court size, I mean, if I was in charge, the only thing that I would change about that is since we might as well be honest, everything's politically polarized, I would like an equal number of leftist and rightist justices up there if we're going to be having both.
Yeah, so but if you're bringing in political considerations, you have to consider the fact that from a certain perspective, not our perspective, of course, but from someone else's perspective, it might look as though all of the justices are to the left of where they should be.
Yeah.
So what would it matter if they're all, left of Hillary Clinton or right of Ronald Reagan? They're still to the left. Here's my proposed Supreme Court reform. Let's keep life terms, make Tiger happy. But let's reinstate the monarchy. The judicial branch actually came about from the Plantagenet king. And he established the judiciary as an arm of himself. And the word circuit comes because circuit court, the judges used to ride a circuit. They used to get in their carriages, ride around the country, judging cases for the king, in the name of the king. So they were appointed by him. They ruled according to his will. And that is why they do what they do. That is why they have life terms. That is why they are the voice of the government. Now, making it independent, that was a novelty. But I think the money move here is to reinstate the monarchy.
That's executive reform, not judicial reform.
Oh, no. It's definitely judicial reform because it's moving it from an independent judiciary back to what it was supposed to be.
Okay, so if suddenly we were to do this, now you're talking that it would be under direct control of the president?
That is correct.
All right.
Except he wouldn't be president. He would be the monarch.
Right. King Biden.
Well, Biden would obviously not be there in this scenario because in a just world where a monarchy was established, Biden would obviously not be in the consideration. He would not be in the running for king. Oh, speaking of who would be in the running, we were going to talk last week about that book that came out by those two journalists, I Alone Can Fix It. Did you ever look into that?
No, I have not.
Well, I reserved the book. Obviously hasn't come in yet, so I haven't been able to read it. But the general was saying that he came to a... You know what? Let's find that article. Let's just... Because it's too good, man. And I wanted to talk about it when we ran out of time.
All right. Yeah.
Problem is, it's so far up here. FBI, yeah.
Scrolling.
Yeah, we had those. Man, we had so many stories last week, huh?
Yeah.
And we didn't get to any of them. FBI.
Exactly.
Oh, that's right. I wanted to talk about that one. Florida man gets 8 months in prison in U.S. Capitol attack. Let's open that because they're not going to effing succeed. Top generals feared Trump would attempt a military coup.
All right, there it is.
All right, and then right before that, there we go. Incredibly disturbing. Incredibly disturbing. I alone can fix it. Trump prosecutors aiming small. Come on now. And we talked about Hunter Britton last week. All right, let's talk about this one. Mike Mullen, ex-Joint Chiefs Chairman Mike Mullen, incredibly disturbing that military leadership reportedly feared Trump coup. That's not the original one, though. It is. Okay, so this is CNN. They're not going to effing succeed is the headline. That is a quote. So they're not going to effing succeed. Top generals feared Trump would attempt a coup after election, according to new book. Now, let's see if this will play. This is the video where they're talking about it. CNN. Let's see if the audio goes through.
America's top military commander comparing then President Trump's rhetoric to Hitler's and his followers to brown shirts, to Nazis. That top commander finding himself rallying subordinates to protect the peaceful transfer of authority and perhaps even head off a coup, having to explain to the Speaker of the House that no, this country will not launch a nuclear strike at the whim of who she characterized as an unbalanced president. These and other chilling scenes are contained in a new book, I Alone Can Fix It, Donald J. Trump's catastrophic final year. The authors are Pulitzer Prize-winning journalists from the Washington Post, Carol Leonnig and Philip Rucker. It comes out next week. CNN has obtained a series of excerpts, each which is really more alarming than the next. In this one, General Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, is reassuring his deputies about preventing a coup attempt. Quoting now from the book, "They may try, but they're not going to effing succeed," he told them. "You can't do this without the military. You can't do this without the CIA and the FBI. We are the guys with the guns."
I love that line. That's the money line right there. You can't do this without the military. You can't do this without the CIA and the FBI. We are the guys with the guns. The arrogance of the... See, this is why my mic levels keep changing. Because I get all heated about things like this. The arrogance of these people. We are the CIA. We are the FBI. We have all the guns. You're going to need something more than guns to take us over with our F-15s and our tanks and our centuries of knowledge of espionage. Good luck with that. Anyway, let's continue this. It's only 4 minutes long, so it's got like 3 minutes left.
CNN special correspondent Jimmy Gangale is doing the reporting on this for us. She joins us now. I mean, it's fascinating to hear how far General Milley and how he saw this. According to there are parallels, according to the book, about what the former president said about the election being stolen and Adolf Hitler's rhetoric.
Absolutely. Milley was so shaken by Trump's behavior that what he did was he got together with the other chiefs, the Navy, the Air Force, the Marines, and they believed there really could be a coup attempt by Trump. And Leonnig and Rucker write, Milley viewed Trump as, quote, the classic authoritarian leader with nothing to lose. And then Milley is quoted as saying, this is a Reichstag moment, Milley told aides, the gospel of the Fuhrer.
That's another excellent line. I love that line. This is Storm Hunter, that is Anderson Cooper. So this is a Reichstag moment. This is how they are selling this, right? But what was a Reichstag moment? What, the election that Trump was claiming was stolen? Is that what he was going to use as the Reichstag? What's fascinating about this is the doublespeak. And it is double plus good, comrades. It is a diabolical genius that you really have to appreciate. They're accusing Trump of trying to create a Reichstag moment. Now, that's where the Reichstag burned down. Hitler famously blamed it on the Jews. They used this as justification to pass all the anti-Semitic laws in Germany. That's the long and short of it. And they're saying that Trump was trying to do this same thing, right? So that he could take total dictatorial power like Hitler did in Germany. What's fascinating, what's doublespeak about this, is that this is actually what happened with the January 6th riots. So Reichstag burns down. The Nazi Party says it was the Jews. They used this to pass legislation against the Jews. That's the argument in total, right? Like, that's what a Reichstag moment means. Now, all these people saying you can't make a coup, you cannot execute a coup without us, without the military, without the CIA, without the FBI, because we are the ones with the guns. However, you can overthrow the entire government by storming into the Capitol building unarmed and going into the senator's office and putting your feet on the desk. That is a Reichstag moment where you can say this protest that may have gotten out of hand, where people went into a building and were trespassing during a session of Congress, throw all the aggravating factors in there that you want. They went in unarmed, protesting, right? And you call this not just an insurrection, but a white nationalist insurrection at the behest of Donald Trump. Amazing. The diabolical genius of it. To turn this entire thing around, put it on white Americans, and say, this is them trying to overthrow the government. We have to crack down on them. We have to prosecute all of these. And it turns into the largest prosecution in the history of the United States. It justifies everything that the Biden administration does from this point forward to eradicate right-wing thought, not just right-wing activism or organization or fundraising, but right-wing thought itself from this country. All because of this so-called insurrection. Now, this is not political commentary from my part. This is legal commentary, because they're saying this is a Reichstag moment. We used this manufactured crisis in order to pass legislation that would otherwise be absolutely unconstitutional. And what's amazing about it is they are doing this while speaking out of the other side of their mouth, saying that this is what Trump was trying to do. It's incredible. Really, you have to look at it with just amazement and wonder at how flawless. It's like in The Godfather, right? When Tom says to Michael after the Congress implements these investigations into the mafia, right? And Michael's got to testify, and clearly it was Hyman Roth who did it. And Tom Hagen says to Michael, you got to hand it to Roth. He played this beautifully. Like, it's something you have to admire. It is so amazing how it was pulled off. This is a Reichstag moment, Milley told aides, the gospel of the Fuhrer. Let's continue with this video.
Look, we've known that people were concerned that Trump wouldn't leave office. We reported that. To hear General Milley say this, it's clear when you read the book, he cooperated. There are extensive quotes. To hear
and he comes off looking pretty good from what I understand.
He does. And let's remember he had his Lafayette Square very bad
Right,
moment.
which he apologized for. He was, I believe, in combat fatigues, walking with the president in that kind of motley assortment of people from the White House to Lafayette Square.
A very bizarre moment. But to hear General Milley say this is stunning.
There were also, according to his book, daily check-in calls that Milley started to do with Mark Meadows and some others.
So one of the interesting things about that is in the book, Milley says he was doing it also to keep tabs on Trump, as if by talking to Pompeo and Mark Meadows, he would get a better sense of what's going on. We should say that Pompeo has denied some of this account to the authors. But there is another extraordinary moment where after January 6th, and Milley has seen the insurrection, he is now preparing for the inauguration with other law enforcement officials, with the National Guard at Fort Myer, and he is so worried that there is going to be another violent attack by Trump supporters that he says to the other senior advisors, quote, "Here's the deal, guys. These guys are Nazis. They're Boogaloo Boys. They're Proud Boys. These are the same people we fought in World War II.
Oh!
Everyone in this room, whether you're a cop, whether you're a soldier, we're going to stop these guys to make sure we have a peaceful transfer of power. We're going to put a ring of steel around this city, and the Nazis aren't getting in."
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. It shows you where they're really at, right? First of all, I love these guys are the same people we fought in World War II. Trump supporters are literally German Nazis that we as American soldiers fought in World War II. That is coming from an American general saying that you Trump-supporting Republicans are literally Nazis. You are literally a foreign enemy that we must protect America from. I hate ending a sentence in a preposition, but there it is. The second thing I want to point out, if these quotes are true, and she seems pretty confident he's going to go along with everything she's quoting here, the general, that is going to go along with all this, and he really did say all these things. He says, whether you are soldiers or you are cops, we are going to make a circle of steel around this city, not let the Nazis in, etc. Whether you are soldiers or you are cops, that is a super telling statement. Something we have repeatedly harped on at this program, Crime and Punishment, a legal podcast, not a political one, that they have been training the military to come back here and quote-unquote police the American people. This entire thing out in Afghanistan, this entire dirty war we've been fighting out there that is not a war, it's a police action. Goodness, no, we wouldn't want to go to war out there with those poor people. We're just policing them for the good of the world so that Al-Qaeda doesn't come back and do terrorist things. It's just a police action. No reason to call it a war. That's what we're doing here. And police here have been programmed to think that they are on tours. And I will forever talk about the case where, first case out of law school, first trial, rather, out of law school, this cop gets up on the stand and talks about how he's done 3 tours in the neighborhood of Pine Hills in Orlando, which is a bad neighborhood, don't get me wrong, but it's not somewhere like Vietnam or Iraq or Afghanistan where you do a tour of duty. That's how cops talk, though, here in Orlando and everywhere else in this country now. So when the general says to these people, whether you are soldiers or you are cops, we're going to stop these Nazis, that should be very, very disconcerting to you. Tiger, what are your thoughts?
Well, what I always think of whenever I think of how they're prosecuting all these people who went to the January 6th MAGA party, if the prosecution is successful and all these people are charged, imprisoned, that's a lot of Republican voters in jail. And I know a week or two ago I was thinking of bringing on an article where they said that they're still hunting down these people. And, you know, maybe it's arguing from a conclusion, but I just can't help but think that that's another big purpose behind all this. See how many right-wing voters can never vote again.
Yeah, but it's only like a few hundred in the grand
Yeah.
scheme of, even if they got all 10,000 people that were at the
That's
MAGA
what I
party.
think they're trying to do.
Yeah, but that's only 10,000 people, out of millions and millions, tens of millions of Republican voters. That would be just a drop in the bucket. I think really it's a simple... All right. Recall the Ram case. Back in 2018, fall of 2018, it's October 2nd actually. I remember like it was yesterday. They dropped the hammer on the guys in the Rise Above movement. But they don't just do it haphazardly. They do it in such a way that says, we can take you down from coast to coast, no matter where you are or who you are, if you are one of our enemies, right? So Charlottesville comes about, Antifa, and, it's fighting in the streets. It has been all of 2017, left wing, right wing fighting in the streets. That's just what was going on. A year later, over a year later, the feds arrest 4 people for Charlottesville and 4 people for Berkeley in California. Now, that is symbolic, just like what is going on in the Capitol riots cases now. It's symbolic because it shows we've got 4 here on the East Coast in Charlottesville. We've got 4 out there on the West Coast in Los Angeles. They dragged them all the way from LA to the Western District of Virginia, and they jailed them there without bond the entire time, awaiting a trial that never came. So they had 4 on the East Coast and 4 on the West Coast the entire time that this was waiting to go. That is symbolic.
Well, about this is they're closing in on, or if they didn't already, have charged people from all 50 states. Like, they got people from Alaska and Hawaii that are charged.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I think you're right.
I don't remember if you... let me back up the train there. I don't know if you remember, but back in January, February, even March, the FBI got billboard ads all across the country.
Yeah, there was one right down my street.
Yeah. Saying if you have any information about the riots, the insurrection, whatever it was, on January 6th at the U.S. Capitol building, call this number. Basically, everything we accused the KGB of in the Soviet Union during the Cold War, these guys have figured out how to do it en masse all across the country, on the internet, on billboards, a massive system of propaganda that the Soviets could only have dreamed of in their most glorious flights of fancy. And now they've got these guys, again, we accuse the Soviets of turning families against each other, having mothers turn in their sons, sons turn in their mothers. And that's actually what happened, what has been happening in the Capitol cases. Sons bragging about turning in their own mother, who happened to be at the Capitol building, turning their own mother into the FBI. Fathers turning in their sons. Incredible. What were we talking about? I feel like we were talking about the Millie. What a disaster. Anyway, Augustus, have you ever... This is from Freedom Falcon. Augustus Invictus Esquire, have you gone over the Supreme Court unanimous decision striking down warrantless community caretaking gun confiscation? No, we have not.
I've not heard of that.
I feel like Freedom Falcon has asked this before, and I asked for the article, and he probably sent it to me, and I missed it. Freedom Falcon, Can you please email it to me? Because I will confess, once these shows close, I do not read the comments anymore. Contrary to popular opinion, I do not like listening to the sound of my own voice, so I don't ever actually go over these shows again. But if you could email me that case, I will gladly take it up on here. Biden, this is Chase Grome speaking, Biden and FBI have said bluntly to report friends and family if you think they are being radicalized and extremists. Oh, Tiger.
Yes.
We've got, yes, that is true, Chase. We have got the document that came out from the FBI about this. And I completely forgot I had it. Let's hope I don't get suicided by next Monday. Because we're going to have to... You know what? I'm writing that down right now. While I'm writing this down, Tiger, what do you want to talk about next? What article do you want to go through?
Oh, let's see. I did want to make sure that I got those updates on the Ahmaud Arbery deal. So, while I am trying to load these things, it's at least for the upcoming jury selection, the judge is saying he does not want cameras in the courtroom. And the defense is in support of this. They're arguing that. And the prosecution, they're of course making all the open court arguments for it. So that's one of the things to watch for here, is that there's a chance that we may not get to watch this trial. But up until then, there has been cameras in this courtroom. You can watch all these hearings that have been going on. But for the jury selection and possibly the actual trial, we might not have cameras.
All right, so which trial is this? I know you said the name
Ahmaud
of the guy.
Arbery, the jogger in Georgia that was shot.
The jogger, right. Okay. So now the public cannot actually see the trial?
There hasn't been a decision yet on that. Let's see where we're at there. Yeah, so far it's only the defense that are arguing this. The defense is saying they do not want cameras during the jury selection. And
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that's probably a good thing. I mean, think about Chauvin and how the jury went with that case.
Yes, with the jury selection there.
Yeah, they probably took a page out of that, or learned a few things from that trial.
So this is what one of the defense attorneys said about it. In order to ascertain which jurors are suitable to serve in a case such as this case, one that has accumulated more pretrial publicity than most, we have to create the best environment for jurors to share their true thoughts, beliefs, biases, and prejudices.
Yeah, all right.
So
that checks out.
I think he's exactly thinking of what happened with the jury selection in the Chauvin case. Yeah, I mean, yeah.
All right, so what's next in that case?
So, let's see. So that is that, and let's see. Attorneys spar over trial of men accused in Arbery slaying. Attorneys in the upcoming murder trial of 3 men accused of killing Ahmaud Arbery clashed Thursday in court over limits on testimony that defendants acted in self-defense and were in a neighborhood that was on edge because of crime. Okay, yeah. So this is the prosecutors trying to keep out they are trying to prevent some witnesses from testifying that the defendants were acting in self-defense or making a citizen's arrest when they confronted Arbery in February 2020. They had also moved to bar testimony about what Arbery was thinking at the time and perceptions of crime in the neighborhood. There's just no way to have a neighborhood testify that it was on edge or a neighborhood had a feeling, prosecutor Linda Dunakowski said. And this sort of drumbeat that the neighborhood feeling justified a witch hunt would be inappropriate. So,
what?
It's, yeah.
Talk about doublespeak. The prosecutor's always the one making that argument. Well, what about the community? We represent the state. All these legal fictions, and they've always got a witness to tell how everyone was feeling and what the air was like and what the expectation was, and give me a break, man.
And I like what one of the defense attorneys says here. The fact that we have the opportunity to present evidence in support of any theme and theory that we choose is simply the law.
Oh, I like this guy.
Yeah, well, it's actually a girl, Laura Hogue, an attorney for Gregory McMichael.
Oh, yeah?
That said it, yeah.
She married?
And she also calls Gog, who represents Brian, called the request to bar testimony about the neighborhood Orwellian, saying all the defendants had been victims of theft. He also objected to restrictions on discussions of Arbery's state of mind. What the state is again doing is they're presenting you with these overbroad, premature requests for rulings, which are just going to complicate things down the line. So, I mean, it's attorneys doing what they do. I mean, really. But I find it interesting because I have not had the chance to really follow this closely, but I did not know that the defense was going to be bringing in testimony about crime in the neighborhood, and yeah, that I found is an interesting way of going about it. They seem to be saying that the McMichaels, well, neighborhood on edge, that was like, oh, here's the guy who's been doing stuff. So it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah, it also goes to the state of mind of, what these guys were thinking.
Yes.
Yeah, well, God bless them. Bless their hearts. Well, let's go to this thing, man.
Well, real quick, trial is scheduled for October 18th.
All right. Well, it's probably not going to be over soon. That's gonna take a while. I was gonna say, Dune comes out October 22nd. Probably not gonna be over by then, though. So we'll talk about both at the same time, I guess.
Is that? I'm guessing you're talking about a movie about the books.
My God, Tiger. You don't know about the movie coming out in October? It's been coming out for years.
I mean, I thought there was already a Dune movie.
Yes, there was, and now this one has been coming out for several years. It was slated for about sometime in 2020. Pandemic hit. Yeah, I've been waiting for this for a long time now. Anyway, so we found the FBI report. So I am posting it in the chat. There you go. Should have sent it straight directly to you first, Tiger, so my bad on that. I am doing so presently. So this is the Twitter post, and then there's a link to a PDF titled Homegrown Violent Extremist Mobilization Indicators. It is a 32-page report, and it is all about why you should rat out your friends and family who you believe have the wrong ideas. This says 2019 edition, but it was posted by the FBI to Twitter on July 11th of this year. Isn't that something?
So we're not going to see anything about masks, people not wearing their masks in this thing.
Yeah, it's like an 80, like Total Recall or some other futuristic movie where they don't have cell phones. Because who could have predicted that? All right, so they've got indicators, right? This is a diagnostic test. It has risk factors and it has indicators in groups A, B, and C. Now, it explains to you in the introduction what the criteria are for these indicators that explain to you whether they are going to be mobilized or radicalized, rather. So group A, indicators are highly diagnostic on their own. Group B, indicators are moderately diagnostic on their own and require one or more other indicators to gain diagnosticity. Group C, indicators are minimally diagnostic on their own and require several other indicators to gain diagnosticity. And then there are just risk factors that could increase the likelihood that the mobilization indicator suggests violent mobilization. So what I think we should do is go from the ground up. Here you go. I'm posting in the chat the PDF itself, the report, so that you can follow along. I think we should go to risk factors first. Let's talk about what do they think will lead you down the road. I don't want to look at the smoking guns here. I want to see what is a risk factor. An inability to cope with changes or perceived failures in relationships, school, or career. So if you get upset about a divorce, or you get upset about, not getting a straight A report card, or you get fired from your job, that's a risk factor. You got to watch out for that. That's literally everybody in the world, not just America. That's everybody. Everybody has a bad day. Everybody has an inability to cope at some time or another with something awful that happens to them.
I feel like this perceived failures in relationships, that's them targeting the incels.
I knew you were going to say that. That was my first thought as well, as a matter of fact. Yeah, you get rejected by a girl, that's a risk factor. You fired from your job, that's a risk factor. Don't get that promotion, that's a risk factor. Reminds me of a Jim Rohn talk. Won't lend you money? They were on my list. Oh, man. Another risk factor, a history of violence, e.g. domestic violence or violence toward animals, and unstable mental state. So if you have a domestic violence conviction or possibly even an accusation, that is a risk factor for you becoming a violent extremist terrorist on American soil. Think about that. Another risk factor, social isolation or inability to join with or relate to others. Again, the incel. Also, gamers. Another risk factor, the final one
Those
listed.
are really dangerous people, those gamers.
Bro, everybody on this list is dangerous. And these are just the risk factors. Can you imagine when we get to groups A, B, and C? Ooh, it's going to be chilling. The final risk factor, possession of, access to, or familiarity with weapons or explosives.
Oh, come on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Every martial artist, every cop, every FBI agent, CIA agent, every soldier,
even just
every
farm
veteran.
boys. Like I knew, I knew.
Yeah,
I grew up with a
hunters.
kid who he would fit this description very well. No military or anything. He was just a good old boy on a farm.
Well, you're getting a knock at your door soon, talking like that. I'm going to want to know who this good old boy is. But that's a risk factor. You have familiarity with how to use a knife. You are at risk for becoming a violent extremist terrorist on American soil. Amazing. All right, let's go to groups A, B, and C. All right, let's go to the other end of the spectrum. Let's see what the smoking gun group A indicators are. Number 1, preparing and disseminating a martyrdom video or statement or a last will. Well, yeah. Okay. I could get on board with that.
Yeah.
All right. You've made a video saying I'm going to kill everybody. Yeah, that's an indicator. I'd say.
Yeah.
However, their solution to this is, well, call the FBI.
I like the picture though.
You mean how it's not a white guy?
Yeah, yeah, like
Some
they
white
got
kid in a preppy shirt? Yeah.
ISIS flag there and his AK in front of the camera.
Yeah, almost like they're taking this seriously.
Yeah. It's like a throwback to back when I was in the army during back when terrorists were Muslims.
Glory days of the Patriot Act.
Yeah.
Number 2 indicator in Group A, seeking religious or political justification for a planned violent act. So, I guess they're putting the cart before the horse here. Or they're saying that this person is putting the cart before the horse. Saying that, well, I'm going to plan this attack, but I want to make sure to justify it by being a member of the Republican Party or a white nationalist group or Al-Qaeda or ISIS. They're going to commit the act anyway. Like, is that usually how it goes?
Political justification for a planned act. I mean, like, that's literally the definition of terrorism. Like, it's...
Well, terrorism is when you're using violence in furtherance of a political or religious... so saying that, well, I'm going to plan this violent act and I'm seeking justification for it from one of these political or religious affiliations, like, that's not how that goes. To my knowledge, that seems totally backward. So that's weird. But let's keep going. Number 3, attempting to mobilize others to violence, especially family members and peers.
Wait, isn't that what the FBI does?
No. Big Brother can do no wrong.
Oh, okay.
They're allowed to do it. Like when we talked last week about, well, cops can't lie to people in their investigations. Of course they can. And of course the FBI can encourage everybody to violence and make up entire plots and rope people into it and then prosecute them. That's their job. That's why we pay them the big bucks. It's
the only way to stop terrorism.
It really is. Yeah, it really is. Sometimes you gotta make it. Uh-oh. All right, well, we're still streaming. I got an error message, but that's okay. Let's see. But yeah, if you're attempting to mobilize others to violence, especially members and peers, yeah, I'd say that's probably a real indicator. But again, you got to remember the entire point of this booklet, the entire point of the FBI's post on Twitter, is that when you see these indicators, you call the FBI. They're the ones who know. Don't try to handle this on your own. This is the experts' field. Rat out your brother. Rat out your father. Rat out your son. Rat out your son-in-law. Make sure you come straight to the FBI. Right now, this is just, if you see something, say something, like post 9/11, like, look, this is a good idea, you should do this, but soon it's going to be, well, why didn't you turn them in? You're telling me that you knew that they had these indicators, you knew that they were seeking religious or political justification for a planned violent act, and you failed to contact the FBI? Well, that's a crime. Not yet. Not yet, knock on wood. But it will be. Mark my words. Number 4, seeking help from family, peers, or authority figures to enable travel to join terrorist groups overseas. Yeah, okay.
Mom, give me money so I can join ISIS. Please, Mom.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'm behind the times on this one. Do people actually do that?
I've never heard anything like that.
I mean, I've heard of, I can imagine anyway, people saying, well, I want to go join ISIS, so I'm going to tell my mom, hey, I want to go backpacking through wherever. I want to go visit Egypt. I want to go whatever. Like, they're not going to tell them, yeah, I'm going to go join a terrorist organization, right? That would be crazy. In fact, from my studies, which I will say are, not localized, like I've studied this pretty extensively. A lot of the Islamic terrorism, if we're still allowed to use that phrase on YouTube, it comes from the fact that these are often second-generation immigrants. They are offended at the way their parents have been Americanized, kind of like a lot of white kids today are offended at their boomer and Generation X parents for selling everybody out, for having a materialist, consumerist view of society. I'm not saying that that's what, we're not throwing boomers and Gen X under the bus here. I'm just saying that is the perception of a lot of millennials and Zoomers, right? Is that our parents lived this American dream that turned out to be a lie, so we are going to radicalize and go far right, right? The same thing is true of these kids who become Islamists, whether in Europe or in the United States. They see that their parents did what our parents did, and they say, nope, we're going back to roots. I'm going to become a Wahhabist. So
that's actually pretty interesting. I had no idea.
Yeah, that's the going explanation of how this phenomenon is going on and has been going on for years. So I don't think it's realistic to say this kid who thinks his parents sold out his entire civilization and history and culture, he's going to go to his parents and say, hey, Mom, can I get $5,000 so I can go join ISIS? That's not, come on. That's like an actual white supremacist terrorist, which I'm sure exists somewhere. It's like an actual white supremacist terrorist going to his boomer Republican father and saying, hey, Dad, can I get $10,000 to buy some C4? I really, really want to blow up some bridges. Like, that's just not reality. So, I don't know, man. This whole booklet, it stinks.
Yeah, I don't know what they're trying to look out for there on 4.
I really think this is about just getting everyone climatized to, you need to turn in your friends and family. Anything you think could be along these lines, you need to contact us, because this is serious. All right, let's go to number 5. Preparing to travel to fight with or support terrorist groups. Okay.
I mean,
yeah, I don't think there's any argument.
It's already happening.
Yeah, if they're on the move there and that's real, okay. And I guess the question then would be, what exactly is a terrorist group?
Yeah.
Like, where do you get that list?
Incel is one of them.
Yeah, I'm gonna go fight with the incel group in Italy. I guess if you have actual knowledge that your brother is leaving on a jet plane to go fight for ISIS, okay, I could see the FBI saying you should contact us. I would, however, point out from a philosophical and cultural standpoint that it's still the FBI telling you to rat on your own brother. We have a Western prejudice against that, and the East does too, man. You've read Confucius. You're a Chinese scholar. What would Confucius say about doing something like that, ratting out your own brother for the government?
That you're gonna get me into that kind of stuff. It's like, I mean, the Chinese law is typically all in support of the government, and especially Confucianism. They're very much about the government. I don't know.
That is true.
I can't think of anything off the top of my head about ratting out family members to things, but they make no apology. The law is there for the government.
That is the Chinese tradition, yes. However, Confucius in the Analects actually addresses that and condemns when a family member would go to the government to rat out his. I think in that that illustration was actually a son betraying his father to the authorities. I think that was the illustration that I'm recalling.
Yeah, because you're talking about filial piety. That's right. Yeah.
That's right. And filial piety is the
Protect
foundation
family
of
at
all
all
society.
costs.
That's right. Without this family, there can be no society. And that really is the nefarious part about all of this system in trying to destroy the family and promoting abortion, promoting divorce, getting our kids to cut off their private parts to become another sex that they can never be, getting people to rat out their own family members to the government. All of these things that destroy the family, that is the nefarious aspect of it, because there can be no real society without the family. But that's the point. They don't want society. They want slavery. If I can go Alex Jones on everybody tonight. Because it hyper-individualizes everybody. You can choose what gender you are. You don't really have brothers and sisters. This is going to get in the way of you choosing which college you want to go to. This is going to get in the way of you pursuing the career you want rather than being a mother. You don't really have a family. But we, at the government, we are here to protect you. So just turn them in. Choose what sex you are. They don't want you to be you anyway. They want you to be what they want you to be. It's insidious. Anyway, number 6 in Group A, communicating intent to engage in violent extremist activity, a threat with justification for action. E.g., exempli gratia, social media post, tweet, hashtag, or manifesto. In other words, if you see a tweet where somebody is communicating an intent to engage in violent extremist activity, you better report that. Now, if somebody said, all right, here's a tweet, I am tweeting I want to blow up the Capitol building. Yes, I get you. That would be, or no, because this says violent extremist activity. All right, so the tweet would have to say something like, I want to blow up the U.S. Capitol building for Allah. Okay, that would fit that bill. I think most people would agree on that, no matter how much they hate the government. However, that's clearly not what they're talking about. Violent extremist activity would include this insurrection that occurred on January 6th. Let's not forget, it was the FBI who posted this to Twitter. The same FBI who bought all those magnificent billboards asking brothers and sisters to turn each other in if they had knowledge that their brothers and sisters or fathers and mothers were present at the Capitol grounds that day. So, whatever violent extremist activity means to you, it could be a banner drop by Patriot Front over a highway. Because that's violent, right? That scares
Words
little
are
children.
violence.
They are now. You know, what's amazing is lawyers are saying this. It's not just laymen. It's not just people on the internet. Lawyers are saying that words are violence. What's amazing is that in your first year torts class, you are taught about that beautiful case of the assize. Have I ever told you about this case, or did you study this one in first year law school, Tiger?
You'll have to refresh my memory.
All right, so we were talking about circuits, right? Like judges writing circuits. And so the assize was when the judge would come into town and he would judge all the cases. And I don't know if these guys one of them had a case or not going on. It was completely independent of each other, apparently. But two guys had words. And one guy insulted the guy. All right, so guy A insults guy B. And guy B puts his hand on his sword and says, "Sir, were it not the time of the assize, I would draw my sword and strike you down." This guy...
I have not heard of this. This is great.
Yes. And guy A, this is an ancient case. I mean, like 1,000 years ago. And the guy A, this He actually went and tattletold on this guy, and he said this guy assaulted him. He said, as he put his hand on his sword, that he was going to assault me. And the judge said, and this is why it became such famous precedent, the judge said, actually, he said, were it not the time of the assize, I would draw my sword and strike you. Which means it wasn't actually a threat. He specifically told you he was not going to strike you. Get out of my courtroom, you fool.
Right.
Yeah, words cannot be violence. That's one of the very famous cases that says, look, man, you gotta get over yourself. Like, violence is violence. Words are not violence. But now, all that Anglo-American tradition is out the window. Now words are violence. Now everything is up in the air, man. Everything is up in the air. Anyway, that's number 6, and then we go to Group B. But I think we've basically covered the point of what this booklet is and what the government wants you to do. What else do we have to talk about? We got about 20 minutes left.
Sure. I feel like there was something that I had that we missed. Oh, right. So, just real quick.
Mr. Caesar is reminding everybody that this is an apolitical show. We at Crime and Punishment have no political opinions about any of this. We are 2 attorneys who are talking about the law. That is all. If we talk about the news, it is only from a legal perspective. We have no political stake in the matter.
All right. Well, what I got here is California synagogue shooting suspect pleads guilty. So, if anybody remembers that one.
Didn't know there was a synagogue shooting.
Really? Yeah, that was a big deal back.
Was this like pre-COVID?
When did that happen? Let's see. It was April 2019. It happened.
Oh,
He
that explains.
opened fired with a semi-automatic rifle during the last day of Passover services at Chabad of Poway. The attack killed 60-year-old Lori Gilbert Kay and wounded 3 others, including an 8-year-old girl and the rabbi who lost a finger.
I don't want to nitpick, but it's actually pronounced Chabad for future reference.
All right.
So what's going on with him? He's getting a accident.
He's pled guilty and by doing so has evaded the death penalty.
I see. So now he's going to... Is this a federal case? Or is it
Let's
state?
see. I did not get a San Diego Superior Court, so it's state.
Case. Yeah,
He agreed to serve the rest of his life in prison without the possibility of parole.
Yeah, so all right, that was my question there. That answers that.
Yeah, so that's what happened to him.
All right,
If I remember correctly, this was the guy, he also posted on 4chan about it ahead of time. And he was, again, if I remember correctly, he was copycatting the guy in New Zealand, and his initial plan was to go and shoot up the place while playing some music, and and that didn't happen. But he did shoot up the place. So that's what happened to him. Don't go shooting synagogues.
Sounds like
it's holy
a Weird Al remix. Yeah, well, probably shouldn't be doing mass shootings to begin with, but let's not go down that rabbit hole. All right, so we've got 2 more things we've got to discuss. One is the Latin Mass thing. We didn't start off with that, right? We never.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, we never did talk about that. And the other is the fact that the hearings start tomorrow at the Capitol. They're doing an investigation of the January 6th thing. New Capitol Police Chief. Officers testifying need to be heard. The new chief of the U.S. Capitol Police said the officers testifying next week, this is Saturday's article, so Officers testifying this week about the January 6th assault on the Capitol building need to be heard. I think we need to pay close attention to what they're saying, said Thomas Manger, the former police chief in Montgomery County, Maryland, who was sworn into his new position on Friday. In an interview with CBS News, Manger said he absolutely supports the Capitol Police officers who are slated to speak on Tuesday at the first meeting of the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th attack. And frankly, that's one of my jobs too, is to listen to these officers and hear from them what their concerns are, Manger said. The 4 officers, 2 from the U.S. Capitol Police and 2 from the D.C. Metropolitan Police, are slated to testify before the mostly Democratic panel about their experiences on the front lines during the attack, where more than 100 officers were injured. Their experiences on the front lines during the attack. A literal war on American soil by actual Nazis that we fought in World War II. Let's not forget. The officers will testify in their own capacities according to the Select Committee, meaning they'll represent their own views rather than those of their employees. Manger said he intended to cooperate with the panel and will be willing to testify if called. I'm not sure I can offer much, Manger stated. You know, I was not the police chief on January 6th, and frankly, my focus is looking forward. I'm not putting my energy into trying to play the blame game. Capitol Police have faced scrutiny from multiple investigative agencies and congressional committees in the 6 months since the attack. Manger told CBS News he hopes to restore confidence as he takes the helm at a department still reeling from the deaths of several officers, the resignation of its previous chief, and an undermanned force. This reminds me of something going on with the Biden administration right now. Well, Biden personally, actually. So the Capitol Police are under attack for all of this, right? Like, it does not matter how much you bend over that barrel and take it. They are still going to say you didn't do enough. Have you seen, Tiger, how Biden has been going after Facebook lately?
No, I haven't.
You haven't seen any of this? Oh, yeah.
No.
About COVID, which I'm completely agnostic about. But you know how on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, there are all these warnings where if you talk about COVID and it is not the absolute truth about COVID, and by truth, of course, we mean what is allowed to be published and what is published by reputable news sources. If it is not the absolute truth, there will be a warning sign saying, here is where you can go on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram to learn more about COVID. Or here's a link to the CDC so you can learn the facts about COVID. Well, famously, recently, the Biden administration is trying to get cell phone providers to collaborate with them on this stuff, not allowing misinformation to be spread via text message. And recently, Biden has been going after Facebook, saying they're not doing enough to shut down all this misinformation being spread. It's all over the place. You haven't seen any of this?
No, I haven't.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like we say, we're apolitical. I've been kind of checking out on Biden news.
Well, I'm only interested in this from a legal perspective. What's interesting to me is that Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the usual great companies that have done so much to protect free speech in America, they did so much to expose the lies of Donald Trump. And really, that is how Biden was able to, through a free and fair election, come to power. And yet, Biden seems totally unappreciative of that. It doesn't matter how much Facebook does, he still comes back and says, you are not doing enough to stop this misinformation from spreading. You have to do more. I think that's noteworthy. The article about the Capitol Police is what reminds me of that, because it doesn't matter how much the Capitol Police have done or how much law enforcement did to not allow an actual insurrection to occur. They didn't do enough. They never can do enough. Anyway, the last thing that I have on my list. Do you have any last one on your list?
No.
All right. So, last week we opened, and this week we close with the Latin Mass controversy. So, for those of you who missed last week's episode, Pope Francis on July 16th issued a decree saying that the Latin Mass is effectively banned. The law, as I understand it, is that you can have Latin Mass only by a bishop approving it, and you can have Latin Mass somewhere else, but it can't be in a regular church, and you can't build a new one, by the way. And also, from this point forward, no priests can actually do the Latin Mass if you're ordained from this day forward, unless it's by the bishop's approval. So, effectively banned the whole Latin Mass from the entire church. Left some power in the hands of the bishops, but it's pretty clear what just happened. Traditionalists were absolutely up in arms, and for those wondering, why are we talking about the Latin Mass and the Catholic Church on a legal program? It's because the Pope is the last absolute monarch on planet Earth. His Traditiones Custodes, the thing he issued, that is a decree, it has the effect of law. It's basically, like my friend put it the other day, it's basically like an executive order. He issues this thing, and it is law. It's an order. Now, the next pope can come in and reverse that, issue his own so-called executive order. But for right now, this is the law in the Catholic Church, and it's fascinating. Caused an absolute uproar on the traditionalist side of the church. So as a little background, all this started coming into being back in the 1960s with the Second Vatican Council. Changes started to be made to the Mass, all 7 sacraments, as a matter of fact. They started changing it from Latin to the vulgar languages, so that now you go into a Catholic church, they're probably doing the Mass in English or Spanish or whatever language you're around, instead of Latin anymore. The traditionalists still do it in Latin, but by and large, everybody's gone along with Vatican II. It started going away, and then Pope Joseph Ratzinger, he basically sanctioned it, and it came back and had a massive resurgence. And Pope Francis, poor guy, he has been dealing with this for several years now, while the Catholic Church, the Novus Ordo, the new Mass, the new order Mass, it goes away, and still hemorrhaging people, still massive problems. The traditionalist Mass, everybody started going to. Numbers were through the roof, and finally it had to be banned. And the whole thing, the whole time, from the 60s to the present, was, well, somehow this new order Mass and the traditional Mass, they kind of complement each other. And we're going into the future with this complementary old way and new way, etc. And that is apparently, as one priest put it this past weekend, we're past that now. That has been a lie that is being exposed. Now, again, we're not taking a position on this. We're merely reading the news. And the reason we bring this up is because somehow this has caused a massive civil war inside the church. And they're not just taking it lying down. There was a letter from Father Pagliarani about the issue, the edict issued by Pope Francis. And I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'm just going to point out that the entire thing is about war. The entire letter is, the imagery is about combat, is about war. And where I heard this excerpted was in a sermon where they started off with talking about Elijah slaying the 400 priests of Baal. They're all talking about fighting back, and they're not trying to veil it either. So this is going to be an interesting unfolding development. I would like to see what happens with these bishops, whose sides where. It's something we'll keep in mind as we go forward. Any thoughts on that, Tiger, before we say goodnight to everybody?
No, just I'll certainly be keeping an eye on it. I didn't know it was that big of that this was going on. I knew that some places were shut down, but I didn't know of any kind of rebellion going on.
I actually haven't heard of anybody actually being shut down.
Really?
Yeah, no.
I want to say it was like in Arizona or Alabama, one of those places. Yeah, there was one that was shut down at least. Well, one, who knows how many churches were in the area, but there was at least one bishop that went ahead and just said no more for one of his areas. Yeah.
Well, that is sad.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see how it develops. But let me post, for our final thoughts here, I accidentally posted this while you were talking, Tiger, so I didn't actually comment on it as I posted it in the chat. But this is the newsletter there, and it reminds me, the reason that I brought this up about the Latin Mass, and we talked about in the ads running up to this show, how the Latin Mass and all this mess has to do with the January 6th riots. It's something I brought up to my kids this weekend, but I didn't really go into it much. So I'm glad they're listening tonight. The New Order Mass, you call the Latin Mass versus the New Order Mass. The New Order is actually Novus Ordo Mass, right? Novus Orda Missa in Latin. What's amazing about that to me is everybody talks about Novus Ordo Seclorum. It's on the back of your dollar bill. It means New World Order. So when all of these right-wing nut jobs back in the 90s were talking about the New World Order, because George H.W. Bush, former head of the CIA, was talking about the New World Order, and they were talking about Bretton Woods and the United Nations and Bohemian Grove, all these crazy things. This is the New World Order, right? It's amazing that they use the same Latin for both this secular Novus Ordo Seclorum and also the religious Novus Ordo Missa in the Catholic Church. That to me is a red flag. Not to sound like a conspiracy theorist, it's interesting that all of these massive worldwide revolutionary changes going on right before our eyes, in the same year no less, they use the same Latin. As a Latin connoisseur, I have to make note of it.
Yeah.
So, thank you, Tiger, for hanging out with me this evening.
Right.
And thank you all for tuning in tonight. This has been episode 22 of Crime and Punishment. We are here to tell you, stay in school, don't do drugs. Good night, everybody.